what's going on here is that the West is leading Ukraine down the primrose path. And the end result is that Ukraine is going to get wrecked. And I believe that the policy that I'm advocating, which is neutralizing Ukraine and then building it up economically and getting it out of the competition between Russia on one side and NATO on the other side, is the best thing that could happen to the Ukrainians. What we're doing is encouraging the Ukrainians to play tough with the Russians. We're encouraging the Ukrainians to think that they will ultimately become part of the West, because we will ultimately defeat Putin and we will ultimately get our way. Time is on our side. And of course, the Ukrainians are playing along with this. And the Ukrainians are almost completely unwilling to compromise with the Russians and instead want to pursue a hardline policy. Well, as I said to you before, if they do that, the end result is that their country is going to be wrecked. And what we're doing is, in effect, encouraging that outcome. I think it would make much more sense for us to work to create a neutral Ukraine. It would be in our interest to bury this crisis as quickly as possible. It certainly would be in Russia's interest to do so. And most importantly, it would be in Ukraine's interest to put an end to the crisis.
United States President Joe Biden has authorised the deployment of another 7,000 troops to Germany to bolster the 14,000 already in Europe as a result of Russia's attack on Ukraine. This is on top of the 80,000 normally stationed in Europe. But none of these brigades will include the one American who should feel more obliged than most to defend Ukraine, a man who has profited handsomely from the nation over recent years, the president's own son, Hunter. Hunter Biden was a director of Burisma, a Ukrainian energy company, from May 2014 until April 2019. In that time, he earned about US $3.9 million in director's fees. But however much he benefited from Ukraine, he never felt a strong tie to the nation. He never learned the language or spent more time there than he needed to. In a statement released in 2019, he described his role at Burisma as limited to, quote, corporate governance best practices to facilitate Burisma's desire to expand globally, unquote. That global expansion included trying to broker a deal between Burisma and Kazakhstani Prime Minister Karim Masimov. In 2015, Hunter was photographed at a Washington restaurant with Masimov, Kazakh businessman Kengiz Rakishev, and Hunter's father, then Vice President Joe Biden. Joe Biden says he wasn't there to discuss his son's business. Masimov was arrested in Kazakhstan last month on charges of treason. He's not the only acquaintance of Hunter Biden to appear in court lately. His former business partner and fellow Burisma director Devon Archer was sentenced this week for his part in a scheme to defraud impoverished Native Americans of US $60 million in bonds. He will spend more than a year in jail and must forfeit US $15 million and pay $43 million in restitution. Hunter has denied any knowledge of the scheme. However, the Daily Mail reported yesterday, quote, emails show that Hunter was involved with other deals with the company and Archer throughout the period it was perpetrating the $60 million fraud from 2014 to 2016. Two of Hunter's former romantic partners have also appeared in court lately. London Roberts, a former employee at Biden's investment firm who is now the mother of his 3-year-old daughter, testified before a grand jury in Delaware last month investigating Hunter's financial affairs. Her testimony remains secret. Another girlfriend, Zoe Keston, appeared before the same jury answering questions about Hunter's lavish lifestyle while they were together, staying in upmarket hotels in New York and Los Angeles in 2018. The New York Post quotes her saying that Biden directed her to withdraw thousands of dollars at a time from ATMs. All of this comes after 2 books, Laptop from Hell by Miranda Devine and Red-Handed by Peter Schweitzer, revealed details about how the Biden family has made tens of millions of dollars from international deals using Joe's political connections. Much of the details were confirmed by emails and other records found on a laptop Hunter left to be repaired at a shop in Delaware. The New York Times was saying as late as September 2021 that the revelations from the laptop were unsubstantiated. But even the New York Times is now investigating Hunter's affairs. In February 2022, it sued the State Department for access to emails sent by embassy officials in Romania between 2015 and 2019 that mentioned Hunter. And The Guardian, one of Joe Biden's staunchest supporters, in February 2022, said Hunter's affairs were now becoming hard to ignore. It quoted law scholar Jonathan Turley saying Washington engages in protected corruption. It's how powerful ruling elites make much of their money, and Congress has never seriously tried to crack down on it. The children and spouses of powerful leaders continue to receive windfall payments from companies and foreign interests, but we've never quite seen the likes of Hunter Biden's enterprises. His contracts go beyond anything we've seen before. While campaigning for the presidency in 2020, Joe Biden dismissed suggestions that his son was involved in dubious deals.
We have great confidence in our son. I am not concerned about any accusations been made against him. It's used to get to me. I think it's kind of foul play, but look, it is what it is, and he's a grown man. He is the smartest man I know. I mean, in pure intellectual capacity, and as long as he's good, we're good.
Hunter also said in 2021 his critics had political motives.
No, I don't think I made a mistake in taking the spot on the board. I think I made a mistake in terms of underestimating the way in which it would be used against me.
Some commentators thought the war in Ukraine would be a welcome distraction for Biden, but not even Biden himself could ignore the domestic consequences of sending troops to the region and imposing sanctions on Russia.
Defending freedom will have cost for us as well, and here at home. We need to be honest about that. But as we do this, I'm going to take robust action to make sure the pain of our sanctions is targeted at the Russian economy, not ours.
Fewer and fewer Americans think Biden is up to this job.
There's a new Harvard-Harris poll out today. This is the second poll in 2 days showing Joe Biden in the high 30s. According to that Harvard-Harris poll, Biden's job approval overall is 38%. On the economy, 33%. On immigration, 32%. On foreign affairs, 33%. On crime, 33%. On inflation, 28%. Those are horrendous numbers. Those numbers are vicious and brutal for Joe Biden.
If those numbers are bad, they are likely to get worse as Americans learn more about Hunter's business activities. Fred Paul, Sky News Australia.
Hey, this is Marcel Ernie Racing News, reporting on March 6th, now 12:05 a.m. The Russian network RT News and all supplementary news networks have been banned across most of Europe. So any Russian news or paid-for Russian news has completely been censored. And I did get some of the RT News here, so let's show what they're showing.
In all, more than 100 tons of desperately needed food, the delivery of which has fallen on Russia's emergency services. At stake are not only people's lives, but the goodwill of the population. The city of Melitopol, population 100,000. It was liberated by Russian troops largely without a fight. It is deemed somewhat safe and is the first destination for these humanitarian aid trucks out of Crimea. Russia's mission here is to liberate, not occupy, as stated by Putin himself. Within hours of delivery, thousands across the city headed for distribution points.
Go to the stores, look around the city, and you'll understand why we're here.
There are difficulties getting hold of products, medicines, and there are long queues everywhere.
Citizens are very happy. Peaceful people are happy.
As we spoke to more and more people, our understanding of what happened here over the last 8 years grew clearer. A violent ideological purge, A reign of terror by the nationalists and neo-Nazis, where any ideology but theirs, any positive opinion of Russia, was brutally suppressed. Murders, kidnappings, beatings, and threats abounded. While there wasn't all that much fighting here in Melitopol, that isn't to say there wasn't any. This Ukrainian T-64 reportedly tank was destroyed when it was caught by Russian units entering the city. It, along with a truck and apparently an armored personnel carrier, which were evidently blasted apart. The battle for Melitopol was brief and tame in comparison to other cities. The military's job here is done. The next phase isn't up to troops. It is prosecutors and investigators working to identify and arrest nationalists and neo-Nazis still in the city, those complicit in horrific crimes not only in the Donbass, but all over Ukraine. And as they work, we will learn the true scale of radical right-wing terror that gripped Ukraine for years.
Russian humanitarian convoy supplies. Check it out. Over 100 tons of aid to the Ukraine from Russia. Amazing. And, you can see why the UN doesn't want you to see this stuff.
The neo-Nazi Svoboda Party was co-founded by that guy I just showed you shaking hands with, Joe Biden, and a guy named Andriy Parubi, who served as the chairman of Ukrainian parliament from 2016 to 2019. So do you see where I'm getting at when I start throwing around the term neo-Nazi intertwined with their government, and was welcomed at the U.S. Senate by Joe Biden's foreign policy man, Michael Carpenter. And this is from The Nation from 2019. 5 years ago, Ukraine's Maidan uprising ousted President Viktor Yanukovych to the cheers and support of the West. Politicians and analysts in the United States and Europe not only celebrated the uprising as a triumph of democracy, but denied reports of Maidan's ultranationalism, smearing those who warned about the dark side of the uprising as Moscow puppets and useful idiots. Freedom was on the march in Ukraine. So anybody who pointed this out was called a Putin puppet and a useful idiot. Just like anybody who said Russiagate was garbage. Today, increasing reports of far-right violence, ultranationalism, and erosion of basic freedoms are giving the lie to the West's initial euphoria. There are neo-Nazi pogroms against the Roma, rampant attacks on feminists and LGBT groups, book bans, and state-sponsored glorification of Nazi collaborators. Post-Maidan Ukraine is the world's only nation to have a neo-Nazi formation in its armed forces. The Azov Battalion was initially formed out of the neo-Nazi gang, the Patriot of Ukraine. And here it is. That's their symbol. Arsen Avakov, the new Minister of Internal Affairs of Ukraine, after the overthrow of Yanukovych's government, he issued in April 13th, 2014, a decree authorizing creating the new paramilitary force from civilians up to 12,000 people. So, and then what happened? Well, initially a volunteer militia formed as the Azov Battalion, May 2014, during the 2014 pro-Russian unrest in Ukraine. Azov has since been incorporated into its arms by Ukraine's Ministry of Internal Affairs, just like I told you. The Azov Battalion is a far-right, this is from Military Wikipedia, is a far-right, all-volunteer infantry military unit forming part of the military reserve of National Guard of Ukraine. Okay. And its first combat experience was recapturing Mariupol from the pro-Russian separatist forces in June 2014. All members of the unit are under contract of the National Guard of Ukraine. The Azov Battalion has been labeled neo-Nazi patriots, a far-right Ukrainian militia. And so they're officially a part of their military. This isn't a secret. Andy Beletsky, the gang's leader, who became Azov's commander, once wrote that Ukraine's mission is to lead the white races out of the world in a final crusade against the Semite-led Untermenschen. Beletsky is now a deputy in Ukraine's parliament. So again, this There's a lot to this accusation of neo-Nazis being in the Ukraine military and government. Beletsky is also the head of two neo-Nazi political groups, the Patriot of Ukraine and Social National Assembly. In August 2014, he was awarded a military decoration, Order for Courage, by Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko, and promoted to lieutenant colonel of the Interior Ministry's police forces. Do you see what I'm talking about now? Okay. So let all the other asswipes deny this, but we're here to report it. On June 11, 2015, and you know how I super know these are real neo-Nazis? Because our own House of Representatives admitted it. In 2015, the U.S. House of Representatives passed amendments blocking any training of Azov by U.S. forces, citing its neo-Nazi background as the reason. And on June 26th, the Canadian Defense Minister declared as well that training by Canadian forces or support would not be provided to Azov. So this is our own governments admitting that they're Nazis, and they now deny it.